Yeah, this lake looks excellent. This would be the second year. The barrier went in 2009, I believe. And then we did the reclamation in 2010. And we had one growing season last year, and this is the second growing season for Pickerel. All the fish, plants, aquatic vegetation, everything. The clean water state is on its second year. What we basically had before was a barren wasteland of a lake full of algae, contaminated with sediments and algae. Now we have a lake that's gone to the clear water state. It's gone over to the good side. It's full of fish, aquatic insects, invertebrates, plants and animals, and we now can see the bottom of the lake.
If you were to grade the overall health of this lake, what would you say about it?
I'd say right now it's a 10.
Really?
Yeah, we've had. This is about as good as a shallow lake can get. You have to remember these are fragile ecosystems. The shallow lakes can really tip the wrong way in a hurry, or they can go the right direction. The lake right now is still, we have some of the soft sediments in the bottom of the lake that are still full of that phosphorus, but the good thing is the aquatic vegetation is starting to grow and use up that phosphorus. Fishery's in excellent shape. The DNR in 2010 in the spring stocked northern pike and perch and bluegills. Everything's growing very, very rapidly, the best in the state of Minnesota. You know, this is the fastest growth we'll see in this state. Comparatively to in Minnesota, it's we have the longest growing season in the state down here. You know, we have the longest days in the summer, and temperatures don't stay cold for that long comparatively to the rest of the state. So our fish and plants have a longer growing season. Yeah, personally, I've seen every duck that we have in the state of Minnesota. I've seen out here. Anything from the king of ducks, the canvasback, to the mallards, to the little puddle ducks, the wood ducks, and teal.
Okay, and tell me about what the shell rock does to monitor this lake.
Well, I monitor this lake weekly in the summer. Now, I don't monitor the other lakes weekly, that's bi-weekly, but I'm trying to get a good handle on Pickerel Lake and how the ecosystem is turning back into that clear water state. So I want to monitor it extensively and document everything, since it's been such a success.
And the success here, just give me some bullet points on what steps it took to get this lake cleaned up.
Right, the biggest step was putting in that fish barrier on the outlet between Fountain Lake and Pickerel Lake, just so we could get those common carp stopped from re-entering the lake. And then the second point was doing the reclamation, actually killing off those carp that were already in the lake.
That took a year to do that?
Yeah, it took a year. Well, the construction of the barrier took a while, and then you know, you have to wait until late fall to do the killing the fish. So.
Now, are there any plans for similar projects to this, or I know you have something in the works? But
yeah, we have some grants in right now. We have a grant in to do the same thing for Goose Lake, actually. Put in a fish barrier there and do the reclamation. And then we also have a fish barrier for the outlet of White's Lake. And we haven't done the fish kill yet there, but the barrier is on and it's working. And we are seeing some water quality improvements in White's Lake, even without doing the...
So you know this lake pretty well. What are you going to show us?
We'll go look at the old road out to the island, and then we'll look at some of the vegetative growth. We'll see if we can see any fish. The water's pretty clear, so we should be able to see some northern pike cruising around. Some bluegills. Okay, so a lot of the misconception right now is that you can't boat out here because the vegetation's up to the surface and it fouls your prop. But as you can see, a lot of the vegetation has died back from this spring. You know, it's pretty thick at first, but now you get into July and August, and I mean, you can boat out here. The only vegetation is on, you know, the last 6 inches on the bottom.
How deep do you have the camera there?
Probably in 2.5 feet of water right now. We get a little bit of sediment that gets stirred up with high winds, but other than that, it stays pretty clean.
Do you think that with more boat traffic that would stir it up even more? I don't think we'd have that much.
You know, with the vegetation here, the vegetation's going to help cut that back. Even the wave action, it'll help. Okay. Can you, how good a zoom do you have, Dan? You get that brooded ducks over there? If I slow her down? Right on the water. Yep. Is that too far?
What do you think that is?
I would guess wood ducks, but I'm too far.
Now, is it more primitive over there?
I don't know. They're probably just out in the middle here eating vegetation and hanging out.
So how much of this lake has got people on it? Or, what percentage?
This would be considered probably moderate development on the DNR's scale. Unlike Fountain Lake, that would be highly developed, or the most developed. There's a lot of history behind the island. I believe it used to be there was an apple orchard on that island, and they used to take their horse and buggies between the island and the area where the golf course is.
So a short little roll there.
Yeah.
They take the shortest path. So this lake, would you like to see it stay mostly just for say
Recreation,
skiers, but more of a fishing.
yeah, more of a wildlife and fish and wildlife lake. But
people decide to water ski out here at some point.
yeah, they could do that. I mean, but it's pretty shallow. It'd be ski at your own risk.
They plan it pretty easy.
Yeah.
They can't regulate that.
No, and I wouldn't want to. I'd want to keep it where everybody could use it. There's been some suggestions from the DNR to try and change it to fish and wildlife, and then put a 10 horsepower motor restriction on it, but I don't want to do that.
Deeper pockets out there in water?
Yeah, there's some deeper stuff right by the island. We'll go look at. A little thicker.
I want to learn a lot about this lake, though. This lake intrigues me. It really does, because it is shallow. It's very similar to Fountain Lake, and anything that we can learn, I think, will help us.
Yeah.
But now Pickerel Lake here doesn't seem to be as affected as Geneva. Is there a
Right.
reason for that?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough question. Every lake's different. So maybe those northern pike found a refuge somewhere where they could hide in the cattails, or they got down in the vegetation and were shaded a little bit. Yeah, you're right. We didn't see as bad of a fish kill this summer as we did on Geneva. Geneva was thousands and thousands of pike, whereas Pickerel and Fountain maybe had, a couple hundred apiece. So it sounds like a lot, but it really isn't in comparative to what the total population is. Geneva in general is very, very shallow. It's about the same as Pickerel, though, so
Yeah,
there must have been just something that was a little bit different.
How about the water temp? Can you get to a point where they boil?
Well, the upper limit for northern pike is like 80 or 82 degrees, and we had water temps in the 90s, so it was fatal just from the water temp alone. Yeah, it's the reason why Fountain Lake is blooming with algae right now, too.
Just because of the lack of vegetation.
Yeah, there's no vegetation to use up the phosphorus. Not many pike yet. The golf course does probably take water out of the lake. They probably have a DNR waters permit to do so. I personally don't think that they take enough water to make that much of a difference on the lake. And the DNR, if they were, the DNR would not allow that to happen.
So there are some structures to watch that from happening.
I think the golf course has one small pump along their shoreline is all.
So the carp used to breed in this lake, and
Yeah, this used to be.
Fountain Lake from there.
Yep, this used to be a huge carp rearing area, and then it would feed all those baby carp downstream into Fountain Lake. And so not only would the carp affect the water quality directly in Pickerel Lake, but they'd also be affecting the water quality in Fountain Lake. And we've seen a huge increase in both lakes now that we've got rid of the carp in Pickerel. Well, I would say there's not as many carp in Fountain Lake right now because they haven't, they don't have the rearing grounds that they used to have. They used to have Pickerel Lake, the whole lake available to them, and now they don't. Yeah, the bluegills eat carp eggs. So if we can get more bluegills in Pickerel Lake and start sending some of the bluegills downstream, it'll help eat the carp eggs in Fountain.
Is bluegill a good game fish?
They're excellent. I love fishing for bluegills. Love eating them. They're excellent. Good to eat.
Just a couple years.
Yeah, 2 years and they're probably keeper size. So this is the ring of cattails around the island. Maybe 50 yards wide between the island and the open water. Very good habitat for both fish and wildlife, and it gives the duck hunters a place to hide.
So this is going to turn into a kind of a bird sanctuary.
Yeah, anywhere in the cattails is perfect habitat, and not just for waterfowl, but also for like some of the threatened species of shorebirds and wading birds, and like the yellow-headed blackbirds, which are a marsh species.
Expected the water clarity being the number one. It's just amazing, and I just find myself staring at the water because it is so clear. The other thing, I'm still waiting to see some fish here. I thought I would see more, but I know they're out here. But the vegetation out here isn't that bad, really. The cattails, that's actually very nice.
I'm going to put my camera.
This is a Secchi disc. It's for recording water clarity.
So you're just going to do an observation?
Yeah, we'll take one right now. We'll see we can measure how deep the water is, and then we'll see how far down we can see the disc. Now, it looks to me like I can see that at the bottom there. And we're in about 2.3 feet. We can see the disc on the bottom, so that's quite a coincidence because that's actually, I believe that's the PCA's threshold for impaired waters. It's 2.3 feet. So we're now meeting that threshold, which is great. Yippee.
And that's the goal for the other lakes, is to get to that point.
The whole goal is to get to that point, that 2.3 feet for water clarity. Solutions is we need to be able to manage our lake. We need to be able to implement management practices like we have here at Pickerel Lake, putting in the fish barrier and then doing the fish kill. And that takes a whole community effort. That takes involvement from the local sportsmen's clubs. That takes support from the lakeshore owners who actually want a clean lake and want to use a clean lake and not just look at that lake, stare out their window and see a green lake and think it's okay.
The biggest issues we're dealing with we're in a day and age where people want things done right now, and they don't want to wait for results or take the time. So they expect results like right now. So they're getting impatient, I believe, is a good way to put it. And they need to look at the big picture. And eventually, I mean, things are going to turn around here, but it does take time and a lot of effort and a lot of money. Because I do get hit up on questions a lot from a lot of people out there in the community, and I don't have all the answers. So I do call Jared or some of the other guys from the Watershed and ask them straight up, and they'll give me. They're happy to work with me, so easy to work with.
So coming out to a lake like this, they can see the efforts that are working. That, give it 10 years, with the continued efforts, Fountain Lake might be turned around.
Yeah. The water clarity increases and the reduced phosphorus.
This is kind of an abnormal year with the hot.
Right. This is an abnormal year.
Moisture, but
Actually, what Fountain Lake is suffering from right now is a lack of water inputs. That water is stagnant in there where it can just sit and the algae can bloom. So we have seen some really good increases though in the water quality in Fountain Lake in the last 2 years, and a lot of it I would contribute 90% probably to Pickerel Lake. Well, we have 3 fish barriers in right now. We probably need at least 2 more. And then not only having those fish barriers, but doing the reclamations, getting rid of the carp in the upstream lakes, and turning that water quality back around to the good clean water state where our lakes are meeting the standards. We do that upstream of Fountain Lake, and it all affects Fountain Lake itself, and then also Albert Lee Lake and the Shell Rock River. So we're taking the approach, and we've taken this approach since day one, of starting in the upstream part of the watershed and working our way downstream. We want to do it right. We only want to do it once, and we're doing this for all the citizens in Albert Lee and Freeborn County. Some very smart individuals in Albert Lee got together, and they could see what they wanted to accomplish in the future, and they had enough foresight to get together and petition for the watershed district. They wanted to see that good water quality for them, for their generation, and for their children's and grandchildren.
Okay, well, devil's advocate.
Fortunately, we have as many resources in Albert Lee as we do. You know, we have a lot more stuff to work with and work on. And these lakes were in such poor shape to begin with. You know, they've been degraded for 80 years or 100 years. They're not going to get cleaned up in 2. It's going to take a while. We were number 1 or number 2 in the nation for filter strips along our drainage ditches and creeks.
So that kind of takes care of the agricultural situation.
Oh, it was a huge effort on the part of the ag community.
And then an urban area around a lake.
Right.
That doesn't help, right?
Oh, it doesn't help, but a lot of the lakeshore owners now are coming to me and saying, hey, I want a more natural lakeshore. I want to help the lake. I want to do something for the lake and make sure my fertilizer or my runoff doesn't get into the water. So a lot of the citizens are getting involved, and even the city of Albert Lee, you know, they've been talking with us about putting in a bunch of rain gardens and you know, possibly doing something with the streetscaping project.
I suppose if you have a heavy rainstorm and you see ponding,
Yeah.
that'd be a good place for a rain garden,
Yeah, anywhere where there's a low area.
like Morin Lake.
It's not just here, it's the whole state of Minnesota. You know, I can't say what it is offhand, but 90+% of our wetlands are gone. Now in Albert Lee, they do have some pumps to pump a lot of that water, and we don't want the houses to flood. But
If there's other solutions like a wet garden.
yeah, like rain gardens, rain barrels. We've given out a lot of rain barrels now.
Are you happy with those results? They seem like a real popular item.
Yeah, they're a popular item. If we can, during those big rain events, if we can keep as much water out of the lake as possible, it's great. Just so we don't flood out Main Street and we don't flood people's basements and yards.
Turds coming up the drain.
Yes.
Go figure. Better ways.
Dave, this is good. This is great to have another point of view.
I was biased.
Another slight change. I don't know. It would take a massive effort. You'd have to give everybody on the lake to approve of it.
Which isn't a whole lot of people.
No, but it's still about impossible. Something like that. Look at that. I thought he was dead because of the water.
He choked himself.
Is that really? Is that for sure?
Yes.
Yeah.
He choked on a bluegill.
This is a pretty recent spill, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, that's a walleye, isn't it?
No, it's a northern.
Northern? That's one of your stocks?
This is one of the stockers, probably last year.
Okay, got the call just a few minutes ago.
Okay, so we were motoring along, and I actually thought this was probably a pike that had died because of water temperature, but turns out that he or she died for other reasons. This is really neat. I've only seen this once or twice in my life.
No, that's just one big old healthy perch that he decided. Wow,
I think that's a bluegill. That's about a 7-inch bluegill in his mouth.
And that prevented him from pushing water or swimming?
Yeah, he just couldn't swallow it and couldn't spit it back out. So this is the kind of fish we have in the lake already.
Biting off more than you could chew.
Yeah, he bit off more than he could chew. It's too bad. That's a nice fish,
Yeah,
but
that is too bad.
that's unique. You don't see it every day.
Now the process will be some bird's lunch.
Well, the seagulls will get to eat. They need to eat too.
There was eagles out here at one time. Are they
Yeah.
migratory or just
Yeah.
they were coming through?
Well, they migrate, but there'll be some out here all summer too. With as much food as there is now, especially fish like this, I mean, they have plenty to eat, so they'll be out here all year.
So that's just bizarre.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You didn't put that fish there.
I did not plant this fish.
The way out.
Nope. I would have flayed this thing. Good little eater. Take some good pictures of that.
Can I post them on the Watershed Facebook?
Yes.
You got to get that out there. People got to see that. But people.
You got your measuring stick?
Yeah.
That is almost an 8-inch bluegill. Or is that a perch?
It's a nice bluegill.
Maybe it's a perch.
Is it?
Let's run up to the west end.
Could this be a cooler part of the lake, maybe?
Yeah, it probably is.
It seems like we got a bunch of fish right here.
It was probably shaded for the longest. Maybe? I don't know. This seems to be an area where we've always seen fish.
Okay, so you just stop and stop seeing it.
Hard because the water's so clear they see you as well.
So this is the outlet?
Yeah, the dam is by that tall tree there.
Something we can get to?
No, the water's so shallow.
What have you learned this year about this watershed? And its
Quite a bit. I had really no idea about the watershed. I didn't know the chain of lakes was so interweaved, and that one good lake can impact the rest of the chain and the watershed in itself.
So,
It's been very educational. Learned a lot, mostly about water quality and water management. Last year I worked with wildlife down in Ventura, Iowa, and that's a whole different ball game here.
Do the two match up at all?
A little bit, a lot of natural resource management. This deals mostly with, watershed management. Down there is wildlife management, prairie and timber.
So it's
Yeah, it's managing the land and its resources will impact the water, and the water will impact the land, I guess.